hopefully this is the last instalment of my escape from the witnesses story, and where is my panda and everything else. As I say, I got to the point last time where I think I ended up in an abusive relationship with somebody who was about 6 years older than me. And the relationship stroke marriage lasted about 6 years, over from start to finish, from when I met him to when I escaped him. And it was my family that sort of came through for me at that point. They sort of helped me to leave him, and sort of said to me, don't go back. I was going to go and stay with them because basically he'd what's the word for it? He'd only ever let me visit for like a couple of hours, because he wanted to meet them before we got married. And when he'd met them, he said, well, I don't really like them, but they're your family, so we'll have to put up with them. And so he would we lived in Sussex, they lived in Essex. So he would, we would get up really early in the morning, and he would drive us all the way to Essex to see my family. And then we would drive all the way home again after about 2 hours, all the way back to Sussex. And that would be my little slot. And normally it would be around about Christmas or something like that. And then the rest of the time it was all phone calls. And so there's me trying to rebuild bridges with my family, and trying to obviously appease the ex-husband. Well, he's now the ex-husband, but he was my husband at the time. And what I did, because I sort of realised that I didn't love him anymore. I realised that not only didn't love him anymore, I knew I was in danger. I knew I had to get out of this relationship, and I really didn't know how. I did try and leave him, I think about 6 or 7 months before I actually got away from him. But it was 18 months overall between the realisation and actually getting away from him. What's the word for it? I wrote a letter to my mum telling her, that's the first thing I did was tell her that what was really going on. And of course she phoned me back, and she was upset to hear about it and everything else. And eventually arrangements were made for me, and my husband agreed to it because he didn't want to go. He agreed that I could go and stay with them for a week, or stay with my mum for a week. And so I went up there, and on the lead up to it, I started to put things like my birth certificate in my suitcase, and my marriage certificate in my passport, and all the important things I was going to need. My birth certificate was all carefully hidden away in my suitcase. And I had I was really nervous all the way there, because obviously he drove me up there, and then he left me there. He didn't stay. He just bye and just left me there. And everyone's like, "You're not going back to him. You're not going back to him. When am I let go back to him?" And I'm just like, I might have to go back. I didn't really see how, what could happen really. And so there I was that week, and it was coming up to the time when he was going to pick me up, and he wanted to make arrangements for it. And he said, well, I want you outside the house at 6 o'clock in the morning. And my mum's like, no, she's not staying at 6. You're not picking up at 6 o'clock in the morning. You're not picking up for 8 o'clock. Oh, but I've got things I need to do, and I need to get back to Sussex. So he had a hissy fit on the phone, and I actually put the phone down on him. It's the first time I'd ever put the phone down on him. Normally he'd put the phone down on me. He would never say goodbye to me when we made phone calls and things like that. He'd never say goodbye. He'd just put the phone down. That's kind of what he did. But it was like, I'd put the phone down on him for once, and he absolutely went nuts, and he phoned back, and my mum's saying she doesn't want to talk to you, she's not, she's upset, she doesn't want to talk to you. And he just really didn't like that. So my parents took me out to go to the pub. There was a karaoke night in one of the pubs, and we went to a karaoke night. Which, when you've just sort of put your phone down on your big scary husband, it's a bit weird. So anyway, I went to this karaoke night. We came back, and in the time it had taken for us to go karaoke, spend a few hours there, and come back, he was there. He was waiting. And I was sitting in the car with my dad. He started to go towards the car, and my dad just sped off. And so, that's and my mum and her boyfriend of the time had to deal with the aftermath of him going absolutely bonkers at them and threatening my mum and going to hit my mum, and then saying, I think in one of the creepy letters he wrote to me afterwards, he was saying it was her fault. She was pointing at me and blah 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 blah, and he basically made out it was her fault that he went to hit her. Go figure that one. And so he'd done that, and he was then apparently roaming around Colchester looking for where my dad lived. And he phoned up one of my sisters, and she accidentally, because she didn't know what was going on, accidentally told him that we lived on Old Heath Road. Now, luckily, he couldn't find the number because my dad's bungalow is like set really low and you can't see the bungalow's number. So he's roaming up and down Old Heath Road, which is like this really, really long road, looking for the house that where me and my dad is. And then he phoned my dad up, and I could half hear him on the phone, and he's talking for hours and hours, and it's all about him and how he feels and what he wants and blah 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 blah, and he can't understand why she's done this and blah blah blah. My dad's just being very, very calm on the phone. His ears, smoke coming out of his ears, but he's being calm, and as me, I'm a complete mess by this point. And afterwards, he's just like, let's get some takeaway. So I think at that point, my parents did come through for me on that, and it was a really big thing. So, but I really wanted to get back to my job. I didn't want to lose out on my job. I didn't want to. I wanted independence. I didn't, I suppose, completely trust my parents. Still, there was still a lot of damage that had been done over the years with the whole witness thing and leaving home and everything else. I wasn't ready to go back there, and so I went back to the town where my job was, and I ended up, I think, living in a room above a pub, and that was sort of I think I was about 25, and I think it was the first time that I'd actually suddenly, I was really independent. I had a job, I had a roof over my head. I managed to get hold of a solicitor, but then my ex-husband sort of said, well, if you want a quickie divorce, this is what, you'll do it my way, and we'll go through our family solicitor, because we did have a solicitor. And so, I ended up having to do things his way, because it was cheaper. And so I never got, I just agreed to, I think, a settlement, which, looking back on it, was really silly. I was just so desperate to get away from him, and he offered me a lump sum settlement, which was basically our life savings, which was about 10 grand, which I thought was loads of money at the time, which, when you think I'd put 6 years into that marriage, we had a mortgage, we had a home. He got the home, he got everything, and I was left with a very small settlement. I should have gone for a lot more, but I just wanted to get out of the marriage. I just didn't want to be, with that person anymore. He caused so much damage and so much harm to my life that I wasn't thinking straight. And to me, my life was more important than fighting for my rights. I just wanted my life back. It's probably one of my biggest regrets that I didn't screw his ass off. But that's the price you pay for wanting to get out of a marriage as quickly as possible. And so yeah, I did. And in the meantime, through all of my sort of, I think ever since I'd left the witnesses, been in the YMCA, and been around, I'd always sort of worked with sort of tarot cards and things like that, things that I wasn't allowed to do as a witness, and eventually led me into paganism. And I found a home there. I can't say my pagan journey was completely smooth. There are good and bad people in all religions. There are some lovely witnesses. There are some lovely, genuine people that I met who were in the witnesses, and they don't deserve to be in the witnesses because they're good people, But equally, I met some lovely pagans, really good, decent people. In fact, I found more decent people in paganism than I have in any sort of Christian faiths, to be honest. I mean, there are lots of lovely Christians as well. But I can't say that I can't say hand on heart that the most of the decent people I've met have not been Christians, unfortunately. But equally, I would say there have been some pagan people that I've met who have treated me appallingly and made me a lot of promises, and then when they were bored with me, spat me out and threw me to the wolves, as it were. Unfortunately, there are people like that, and I don't think it's got anything to do with anybody's religion. I think it's just who they are in their heart, and there are some damaged people that no religion is going to fix them, and they have to learn to fix and heal themselves. So even that, I would say that for myself. No, over all my years of stuff that's happened to me, and eventually, good things started happening to me. I eventually moved away from Sussex because I realised that Sussex wasn't as healthy a place as I just kept moving around and never settling anywhere, never meeting anybody. I think I was single for about 4 years, and I was getting to 30, and I was thinking my life's over, and it was just beginning. And so I ended up moving back to Essex and moving back with my family for a while, and then I got my own place, and then started getting into hobby, into reenactment, stuff like that. And lo and behold, I met somebody. And before I knew it, I was, having my first child, and I've got 3 now, but, and I'm married to the guy, so, some things work out. And I think I'm grateful for that. That I'm not on my own, especially as now I've been sort of diagnosed with PTSD. And then a few years ago, I had a road accident where I hit my head, and so I ended up with basically I got hit by a car, and the right side of me is sort of a bit damaged, and so I've got what they call a traumatic brain injury, which means that I have trouble with my short-term memory. I have to convert a lot of things into long-term memory. I get mixed up with days and dates and all sorts of things, which is very frustrating because I used to be, before that accident happened, I used to be so organised, and now, I need sort of help to organise myself, which is very frustrating because everything's all in my head, but then I can't transfer it. It's like even making a cup of tea. It's only recently that I don't get stressed making a cup of tea. Am I right if I make a cup of tea for myself? When I first had my accident, I couldn't make tea at all. I couldn't remember. I had to think about putting the tea bag in the teapot and putting the hot water in, and then what do I do next? And even now, like making tea for other people, I'm really touchy about it in case I get it wrong, or cooking meals again. Most of the time I make cooking meals, but sometimes I forget to turn the oven off, or I'll just or I'll let the food burn, or things like that. And it's not because I'm not a good cook; it's just I just, you know, my brain can't always remember what I'm supposed to be doing, and because of my short-term memory, and then I end up burning things. Or one time I nearly set the kitchen alight. I know it's like, I shouldn't laugh really, but so yeah, I'm grateful for the fact that I have a husband who will put up with all of that shit, because I don't think anybody else would. And I'm sort of focused on, as I say, I'm still pagan. I'm proudly pagan, but I wouldn't like push it on other people. I'll talk about it proudly, but I would never want to push it on other people because it might not be their path. And I love everybody, Christians, pagans, Muslims, I love everybody. I think it's important to be, to focus on people's similarities rather than the differences. You've got to look beyond the person's, and it's, I'm quite happy to make friends and witnesses if they want, but as long as they don't like force their beliefs because their beliefs are not healthy, unfortunately, and they're being deceived by some very bad people up in was it in America? The sort of run by the governing body who basically make up stuff and then tell them it's new light. But I will help anybody leave. Anybody who wants to leave, I will help them leave, especially if they've got children. I mean, for me, the most important thing is if you've got children and you want to leave. I know it's hard to leave, but the longer you leave it, the more harm your children are going to come to mentally. It is far better that if you know it's wrong, and I know they're possibly going to lose their grandparents or lose friends or that, that the family members, but in the long term, you've got to think what's best for them, for your children, and for your family. You just have to mentally prepare yourself for the downsides, which is possible loss of family. I would say anybody that leaves, anybody that wants to leave and puts their children first and says, right, we're gonna live a normal life, kids. It's not easy. It needs to be done gently, but at the same time, the sooner you get out, the better. It's better to have the support. I've said this before. Get the support of the school. Get the support of mental health people. There is a lot of support out there. People like me, I'm happy to support anyone who wants to leave. But I'm not interested in doing anything that is like I'm not into arguing scriptures with people and all that stuff. I've been out of it since I was 18. I'm 46. I've moved on from all of that. I've done my research. I've tried to plough through crisis of conscience, and I just, I think by that point, it helps a lot of people to leave. But for me, I think I'd left so long ago that it was kind of irrelevant. But no, if people want support and help to leave, then I'm happy to give people moral support in their exit structure. Obviously, I'm not going to handhold somebody and tell them how to do their exit structure, but I'm quite happy to advise people and, in that kind of capacity. But I'm also want to celebrate leaving. Part of the reason why I chose about the panda business is because the panda to me represents my lost childhood. I had my childhood through no fault of my own. I had it stolen from me. I had it stolen from me by the Watchtower. Okay, the organisation behind the witnesses. Okay, it was stolen from me. All those I worked it out. I must have missed 17 Christmases, 17 birthdays, and Mother's Days, and November the 5th, Christmas. Well, I've done Christmas. All those Halloweens, all those celebrations that are part of normal life. There is nothing wrong with having celebrations. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your life. And, I'm sure there are plenty of ex-witnesses out there who are thinking to themselves, oh, I've left now. How do I celebrate Christmas? How do I do it right? Because I remember thinking that myself. I remember thinking, well, now I'm going to celebrate Christmas. I don't want to celebrate Christmas. And what do I do right? And what do I do wrong? And, those are the people I want to reach. Those are the people who want to get their life back, wanting to either plan a strategy to leave where they can sort of maintain a relationship with their families and the ins and outs of that, or people who want to celebrate Christmas for the first time and want to know how to do certain stuff. I mean, that might sound silly to a lot of people who've never been a witness, but I don't think I started enjoying Christmas until my little ones came along, till I had children, and I could see the joy on their faces and things like that. And it's especially like Christmas when you're on your own and you don't know anybody and you've got no one to spend Christmas with, and that's just heartbreaking. We need to get together and find people who are stuck on their own and help them to find a Christmas buddy, to enjoy Christmas with, or if people want to know what decorations to put up, or whether to make anything, or that's the kind of thing I want to help with. People readjusting to normal life and not feeling guilty about it and enjoying it. I mean, there are people who don't want to celebrate Christmas or Yule. I mean, I don't particularly celebrate Christmas as such. I do for the sake of the children because that's what they're used to. But I'm more inclined to celebrate Yule, and I tend to have my own sort of, because I'm what they call a solitary witch or hedge witch. I prefer the term solitary witch, although I am a hedge witch, but hedge witchery is a specific craft or a specific form of paganism, and there's ins and outs of that I don't really want to go into, but that's sort of my path, where I would consider myself a solitary pagan who is a hedge witch. But that's for another thing. But yeah, so that's sort of, I hope I'm explaining this right, but that's sort of where I am. I feel that going back to the panda to me represents a childhood lost, a promise that I was promised as a little kid that one day I was going to have my own pet panda that was going to be cuddly and lovely and everything else. I didn't get my panda because there was no panda, because the promise was not real. Everything I was told about the paradise and that God was going to get rid of all the bad people, and it's all, it wasn't real. And I've had to live with that for us, knowing that there's no forever paradise on earth. There's no, I think that's something I'm mostly trying to come to terms with, the fact that one day I will actually die. And I think to myself, well, when am I going to die? Am I going to die tomorrow? Am I going to die a few years down the line? Am I going to live till I'm 100 and die peacefully? Or, and I just think a lot about that. And I try not to. I try not to, because I want to live my life and I want to have a good time. And I think to myself, well, I'm 46 now and I don't want my life to be over. I'm not ready for my life to be over. I've missed out on so much. I've missed out on the best part of 20 years of my life, or 18 or whatever, because I didn't leave. It didn't escape until I was 18. So there's a big chunk of my life that was taken from me. So my Panda is like the first 20 years of my life. And, I'm never going to get that back. But, why should I have had that taken from me? I want to reclaim it in some way. I want to help other people reclaim theirs. So that's why I talk about the Panda a lot, because the Panda to me represents this stolen childhood, this hope and these dreams that I was brought up with, that I was brought up to believe that weren't real. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to this. Me waffling on. So where do I go from here? Where I go from here is I'd love to hear from people that are embarking on maybe their first Christmas or their first Remembrance Day. Are you wearing your poppy for the first time? I don't have a poppy on. I kind of haven't got around to doing that this year, but normally I'll wear a poppy. The only thing I find with the poppies is the pins always fall out, especially when I've got like boobies. And something was fall off. I'm sure I've got one somewhere that's a pin badge, but I can't seem to find it anywhere. So yeah, are you wearing your poppy for the first time? Are you because we weren't allowed to wear poppies. Poppies are political. We weren't allowed to do that. We're not meant to be in politics. So yeah, that's something that some people might be doing this year. And obviously I want this to be sort of a lead up to Christmas, so I'm interested in hearing from people that maybe celebrate Christmas for the first time, and if they've got any queries, if they've got any if they want any advice, if they've got any tips, if you've celebrated your first Christmas last year, tell me how it went. If you're going to be celebrating Christmas this year for the first time, tell me what your plans are. We'll talk. If you've got a birthday coming up and you want to shout it to the world because you're not worried by all those people that are shunning you, you want to shout to the world, you have a birthday, let's have tell me and I'll give you a shout out and I'll say, hey, happy birthday. That's kind of how I want this channel to go. It would be nice if I can have a sort of interactive and say happy birthday to people or Merry Christmas to people, or all those things we missed out on. If your child's like having their first birthday or whatever, let's celebrate life. Let's celebrate the life of our freedom, and because that's really worth celebrating. So take care of yourselves, have a brilliant life, enjoy your freedom, do say hello, do wave, and for those of you brave enough to get in touch and say, celebrating whatever, then, get in touch and I might give you a shout out. So take care, look after yourselves, and mind how you go.